Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today I want to go over 7 insects that are problems in the garden. These show up in most gardens. It's going to vary garden to garden. The most important thing is to really learn what the different insects are that come into your garden, because some of them are good insects. They feed on the bad insects. Some of them cause problems. Some of them are neutral. Just because you see an insect, you don't want to start, spraying your plants and trying to kill them off without knowing what they are. So we're going to cover 7 of them. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get things into focus, but I will. So just stick with me in the video, and I'll zoom in on them when I do the editing so you can clearly see what the pest insect is. So we'll cover 7 of them, and I will also go over some basic treatments that you can do. But the first step before you even get to treatment is identifying what they are and how they show up into your garden. And please subscribe. I'll be doing a whole series on problematic insects. The first 7 are here in my garden now. I'm in Maryland Zone 7. They show up in really April and May. Squash bugs aren't here yet. The cucumber beetles aren't here yet, but when they show up, I'll be doing a second part to this series. Always important to get a picture of that white butterfly. I used to call it a moth, but it is technically a butterfly. Hangs around here in Maryland from middle of April all the way into October till the freeze comes, and that's what wrecks your brassicas, your collards, your kales, your broccolis, all those plants. This butterfly comes in, lays eggs. You get those green worms that devastate everything. So when you see them, they have little black spots on their wings. It's hard to see sometimes. But when you see those, you know that you better be protecting your brassicas. There's one right down there, actually. And you can see the spots on the wings. We saw the white butterfly that brings in the green worm eggs, lays it on your brassicas. These are collards. All these holes from the chewing worms, and I've already found one. If you look right here, that is a worm. Now, I don't remember if they're cabbage loopers or just green worms, but that butterfly comes in, lays eggs, and they just go on the undersides, start chewing holes everywhere. There's probably some tiny ones around, and you can try and manage these by hand, but it's really hard. So I do use a neem oil spray or a BT spray on the undersides of the leaves. These have not been sprayed, and that really does affect them. The neem oil has azadirachtin in it, and when the worm eats that, it shuts down their stomach, basically, digestion, does some other things, but it kills them off. But you want cold pressed neem oil. I sell that at my seed shop. The cold press still has all the natural components, specifically the azadirachtin, and that's what you want. When you buy the products off of shelves in stores, you're going to see hydrophobic extract of neem, and that means all the good stuff has been removed. It's not any better than just using olive oil or anything like that. So I wouldn't buy that. You want cold pressed neem oil from wherever you get it, has the azadirachtin. And BT is also, and both are organic, and BT does the same thing through a different process. Spray the undersides of the leaves, the top sides, the worms eat it, they shut down and they die off. But that, guy right there will infest your brassicas. Early on, when your cool weather crops are growing, lettuces, spinach, the brassicas, you're going to see lots of little holes like that in leaves. That's typically snail or slug damage. Snails and slugs are best treated with an iron phosphate bait or sulfur bait. They're pretty easy to find. Just look that up for the stores. But anytime you see little holes throughout your leafy greens, leafy root crops, it's typically snail and slug damage. These are my purple top turnips, and you can see lots of holes in there, and that is really snail damage. And if you look under the leaf, you're going to find them. There's so many different varieties. You have slugs, which are usually bigger. Snails are usually smaller. Sometimes they have shells. Even with the treatments, I still get them in my garden. I have to stay up with a regular routine of the snail and slug bait. Every 30 days is probably enough. My bib lettuce is finishing up. I've been taking it out of here, cut a couple back there. That head looks pretty good. I do treat my area for snails and slugs with baits, the little pellets with either iron phosphate or sulfur in there. So I stripped this one back, and you can see little damage right there. That's from a snail. You can get down more. There's part of an earthworm. Right into here you can see remains of different things. That's snail and slug damage. They're just in there eating away at your plant. If we look around, there's one right down there. And they get in the outer leaves and they just set up house in there. There's probably more around too. There's a larger one. There's one right by my finger. There's one right there. They get in the outer leaves. The inner leaves are usually fine, so you can remove the bad stuff, eat the core, but you don't want them showing up because they do wreck your lettuces and your tender greens. Slug baits work really well. Again, either iron phosphate or sulfur in the bait. Sprinkle them around. They eat that in a couple of days, their stomach shuts down and it takes care of the problem. I don't have any damage showing yet on my horseradish plant, but I know from a journal years past, sometime around mid-May, early June, the Harlequin beetle shows up, and that's what it looks like. In this case, you know, it's orange and black spots. It's pretty easy to identify and pick out. They can be different colors, but I get these pretty regularly. They come to the horseradish plant, and here's another look at the Harlequin beetle. You can see a snail down there too, but we already covered that one. But once you see one pest, one insect, etc., you're going to have more around. So it's really time to start the treatment. And again, not a lot of damage on the leaves, but I know to start looking for problems in my garden around now. Back at the horseradish plant, and here are some Harlequin beetles. These are adults. Colors are basically the same. They vary a little bit, but they are mating. All the holes are from the guys that you see right here. As they developed, they fed on the plant. Now they're getting to the point where they're going to be laying eggs all over, and that will be the Harlequin beetle infestation. What I like about, here's another one, the horseradish, is that the beetles tend to go right for that. So as soon as I start seeing damage on the leaves, there's more, I have to put down an insect dust. You can use the organic spinosad, you could use a chemical 7 dust, you may try diatomaceous earth, DE. That doesn't have any chemical in there that kills them like spinosad or 7, but the dust, the silica dust, gets into the shells, the legs, areas of the beetles, grinds, and it removes a waxy coating. They dehydrate, they die off. That does take longer. But I just wanted to give you an up-close look at the Harlequin beetles. And there's probably different species and they come in slightly different colors. But if you see this, you have the Harlequin beetles on your plants. Flea beetles are insects that come to my garden pretty regularly. This is a tomato plant. You can see the leaves have tiny holes in them. I've not seen any flea beetles on here. Well, maybe this is one right there. Up, yep. So there's a, well, it jumped, but there's a little black speck. And it's a flea beetle, it jumps. Leaves small holes in the leaves. And I'm going to show you the eggplant in a second. We'll be able to find the flea beetles there. When you have tiny holes that don't have yellow halos around them, that's most likely insect damage. In the case here, it's flea beetles. Let me show you what they look like. These are my eggplant, and you can see little black specks. One right there, one up there. Those are flea beetles. I don't know if they're going to move or not. I dusted these about 7 days ago, and I have to do it regularly. Insect dust is the best way to treat flea beetles, and they're starting to move now, so they're not dead. They just come in waves, wave after wave after wave. If I didn't treat my eggplant, there'd be hundreds of holes in here right now. Looks like the flea beetles came back. They're moving around. Let's see if we can get a close-up. And they just chew holes in there. Eggplant, tomatoes, peppers, they're all related. They infest eggplant. I tried putting the eggplant up here in this raised bed. Thought maybe the flea beetles were down there. They found their way up here. So I pretty much have to dust every 7 to 10 days. You can use an organic dust like spinosad. I recommend dusting at night after the pollinators go away and rinsing the dust off in the morning. Flea beetles are really active, so you can dust like that. And maybe you do it 2 nights. You dust at night, in the morning rinse it off, you kill them off. You dust again, rinse it off, kill them off. That'll take care of the wave that's currently present, but they keep rolling. I don't know how they do it, but they keep coming in my garden. So for eggplant, to really get them to size, I have to dust pretty regularly, at least at least every 14 days, at least. But I pretty much try and stick to a schedule now of every 7 to 10 days. And those are flea beetles. Once you identify it, you're going to see lots of little holes, and then you're going to see this little guy crawling around. And if you get too close to them, they do hop. This one's really brave. It's really important to inspect your garden. These are my muscadines. I've not seen this insect before, and you can see them all along the stem. They have black and white dots on them. I don't know what they are. I like to have a very large magnifying glass so that I don't know if this is going to work here, but I can see what they are up close, and they have these little black dots. Now they're all along the stem here. They're over here under the leaves. As I look around, there's nothing over to the left. Come over to this side. There are more of them all along here. I'll do a close-up when I do some editing. Those are not good guys. But before I do anything to them, I want to go ahead and try and identify them. Most likely they're going to be dusted, kill them off, but they look like they're going to be feeding on the stem. You know, probably eggs laid, they hatched, no idea what they are. Before you start a treatment, try and identify the insect and then pick out the appropriate treatment. Now the lantern flies grow slowly. And last year they came into my area, they laid eggs, they lay eggs at the end of the season. I'll zoom in on this when I go to editing, but they're hard to see. They have little black spots on them, and when you get close to them, they don't really fly, they kind of hop. Now, end of the year, they lay eggs. March, April, they hatch. April, May, they look like that. Just tiny little insects with white dots on them. Here's one right there. And it is going to be hard to see, but I will promise I'll try and zoom in on it so we get a nice look at it. Those are lanternflies, and they grow slowly. It's not really until June, July they get to their full size with the red markings. But I want to get a dust down now or a spray, and I want to kill them off. But those are all juvenile lanternflies. Let's see if I can get one more picture. There's one right in there. They like muscadines, which are like grapes. They like grapes. These are plants are going to be hit with an insect dust. I want to kill them off now. In potatoes, the most common insect you're going to find that's destructive is the Colorado potato beetle. This is what it looks like. Yellow, black stripes. It's pretty easy to identify. And it's going to lay eggs. The eggs hatch, they chew the leaves. The potato beetle goes through several stages. You get more of them. Best way to treat them is to really dust with either an organic product like spinosad. You can use the chemical dust if you want, something like 7. They're both effective. It's up to you. What I have found was that neem oil doesn't work that well for the potato beetle. So some sort of insect dust of your choice is the best way to manage the potato beetle. When you see the first one, you dust, wait 7 to 10 days, dust again. They're going to be coming in cycles, so you do want to stay up on the dusting as a prevention, and that will take care of the potato beetle. Potatoes, just FYI, can take a lot of damage. They can lose like at least 30% of their leaves. You're still going to get great potatoes. So the idea is to manage them down. Let's see, here's another one. So once you see one, you're going to see more showing up throughout the garden on your potato plants. The other thing that you can do if you're comfortable with the beetles and the damage is just hand pick them and remove them, smash them, get rid of them, and that will reduce the damage. Again, potatoes can take a lot of damage in the leaves. You're still going to get great plants. Insect dust, organic or otherwise, are still harmful to all insects. They're indiscriminate killers. So hand picking is the cleanest way to remove them. If you have a lot of them, you know, I do recommend the dust. Then you can go to hand picking, you know, and just keep the population down. Another pest that's pretty common in my garden, they tend to love the brassicas. This is collards right in here. Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, collards, anything that's in the brassica family. Whiteflies will infest the undersides of your leaves. You can see one right there. Let's see if we can get it really into focus. I'll try and zoom in, but it's a little white spot. Those are the egg clusters right there. There's another one over there. This is a mild sort of outbreak right here. I wouldn't even count that. I just washed that off with a hose. If you don't eat and process your brassicas pretty regularly and they're just sitting, they're going to get dozens, if not hundreds, of whiteflies under there. When you hit the plant, they're going to be flying all around. The best way to treat them is to grow an amount of plants that you're going to harvest and eat regularly. That's a little bit easier for the kale and collards. Like cauliflower, broccoli, you're waiting for that head to form. You want to inspect the undersides. Let's see, I want to try and get this one in a little bit more closely too. All right, there we go. What you want to do is spray the undersides pretty regularly with water. That does wash them down. They do fly, but they're kind of weak. Hit them with a neem oil spray or a vegetable and soapy water spray. The oil contacts them, messes them up, they die off. You do, once you see them, you want to spray, I think, at least once a week. The infestation can be pretty severe, but when you see, you know, the little white insects under there and these clusters of eggs, it kind of looks like cotton on there, those are whiteflies. It's really important that you identify the insect and figure out if it's a good insect or a bad insect. Know what they are before you start treating them. You also don't want to treat your entire garden and kind of go crazy with spraying and dusting everything when this insect only hangs out on your grapes or your muscadines. So I want to go over the products real quick. Please subscribe. I'll be doing a whole series this year, 2024, on the different insects that show up in your garden that are problems, and I'll be doing this as they show up in my garden. So these are the first 7 that are really problematic and really, you know, April, May, and June for people. Generally speaking, these are the different products that I use, and let's go over them real quick. Check out my channel, just put in whiteflies, neem oil recipe, and you'll find details on all the ways that I make my DIY sprays and treat for the problems. But you can pick up BT, which is right back there, in a spray if you have a small garden or just a container garden, and that BT is great for chewing worms. You can buy it in a concentrate and you can go ahead and just mix it up in a sprayer. I recommend getting a 2-gallon sprayer or a couple 1-gallon sprayers, just a mix of different sprayers so that you can put different products in there. If you're, you know, using poisons, that this one's labeled poison up top there, this is for other parts of the garden. You don't want to accidentally mix something to spray your garden plants and you had some sort of weed killer or something really toxic in there for whatever reason. Maybe you were treating poison ivy. So I have a couple different sprayers. It's a great tool. You also want to have some soap. Dish soap is really strong. The concentrated dish soaps, the concentrated dish soaps are really strong, so you want to use less of them. This is Castile type soap. It's the purest, cleanest soap. I use about a tablespoon or 2 in a gallon of water to mix my oils through. You don't want to put in a tablespoon or 2 of Dawn dish detergent. That's going to damage your plant leaves. So the other thing I just want to say is when you're trying out new sprays, make sure you test spray your plants. So when I make up my sprays, I do use neem oil. I sell this at my seed shop. This is 2 years old. It does not come like this, and it's done, but it's 1 or 2 tablespoons of neem oil in a gallon of water with 1 or 2 tablespoons of the Castile type soap. Mix it through, and then I spray the undersides of my plants, and that's really for the chewing insects like the green cabbage worm on all of my brassicas. But you can use neem oil, you can use BT. That works really well. When it comes to slugs and snails, it's great to put these baits out really in March when you don't have a lot of plants out there, and the snails and slugs will eat that. Even with treating, you're just minimizing the damage, so you're still going to get some damage, but you stop a devastation from happening to your garden. This is just one brand, Snails Slug Killer. I think this is sulfur baited. They also come with iron phosphate. You just sprinkle them around. It takes care of the snails and slugs. For chewing beetles, I like to use dust. Captain Jack's Dead Bug Dust Spray. This is spinosad. This is actually a spray. You can spray this like on the whiteflies or in the undersides of leaves, but it also comes in dust. So Captain Jack's is organic. It's spinosad. Any product that has spinosad is going to be organic. I don't necessarily recommend these products. It's up to you to, pick what you want. Spinosad is organic. 7 Dust is not organic, But I like having it around. If I have an infestation and my organic stuff isn't working, I will go to the 7 Dust. You know, I'm 95% organic. You just want to understand how all of this works before you start throwing it around in your garden. And again, I want to stress, if you're going to go to the 7 Dust, let's say, and you're treating the lanternflies, I'm just going to be putting that on my muscadines because I have an outbreak of the nymphs of the lanternfly. I want to kill them off, and I don't want them around, so I'm going to maybe use something stronger. Diatomaceous earth is not an insect dust, meaning it's a dust, it's silica, it doesn't have any chemicals on there that contact a insect and kill it. If you're using the organic spinosad or you're using 7 Dust, if it contacts good or bad insects, it kills them all. Diatomaceous earth works by getting into the joints of the beetles, and it grinds the joints down. I think it takes off a waxy coating that's on there. Anyway, they end up dehydrating. The grinding silica kills them off. This is slower, but you could go with diatomaceous earth. I just wanted to give you a quick, overview of the different products that I use. And if you think about it, I have slug bait that gets scattered around on the ground. I have neem oil and BT for sprays for chewing worms. And then I have the dusts for beetles. And then I have a sprayer and soap to make up my own stuff. This can save you a lot of money by making your own stuff. With respect to buying the concentrates, buying neem oil, I sell it at my seed shop. And again, it's not going to look like this when it comes to you. That's 2 years old. I need to get some more. But you can save money. The best way to really understand what comes to your garden is to keep a journal. Write down when things show up, learn about the insects, and then you want to start prevention about 2 weeks ahead of time. Meaning, if the lanternflies start hatching in, say, May 1st, you want to be putting down your dusts about a week or 2 before. If you see that white moth flying around, you want to put down your BT or your neem oil about 2 weeks before that moth usually shows up. And you want to keep the routines going. Like, I'm not going to go in depth today in how often to do this, but if you have an infestation, maybe you do the spray or the dust day 1, you wait a couple of days, you do it again, you get it under control, and then you go to every 10 to 14 days or something like that. In some cases, maybe it's every 2 to 3 weeks. In some cases, maybe it's, every 4 weeks. No need for overkill. Learn the insects, learn what's bad, and then treat it accordingly. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And again, please subscribe. Help me get to 750,000 subscribers. And I'll be doing a whole series on the bad insects that come to your garden and how to manage them.